Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I am your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and I am here today to talk about profound losses in childhood and adulthood, a topic which is near and dear to my heart. I lost my brother when I was 20, so I was a young adult, and then I lost my dad in 2020 when I was an adult. So I'm curious to know what our guests have to say about this topic, and it's something that they have also gone through personally and professionally, and I will introduce them, and then we'll start talking about this. So right next to me is John Santoro. Hi, John.
Hi, Heidi.
So John Santoro's daughter, Paula, died from the hidden effects of hyper-rare genetic syndrome. He has been very involved in the Compassionate Friends since Paula's death, serving on the National Board of Directors, where he was board president, and serving as a trustee on the Compassionate Friends Foundation. As a result of his service, he received the prestigious Simon Stevens Award. John co-founded the Paula Rosina Santoro Foundation, which funds and advises community service projects in New Jersey. He currently serves on the faculty at NYU, where he was honored for his teaching excellence. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Next to John is Shari O'Laughlin.
Hi, hi.
Shari is the Chief Executive Officer of the Compassionate Friends, a wonderful organization which we are all very involved in. Her 14-year-old son, Connor, was killed in a plane crash, and her sister died earlier in her life. Shari is the author of the book, Life from the Ashes, Finding Signs of Hope After Loss, and formerly served as Executive Director for the Children's Grief Center of New Mexico. She is a certified grief leadership coach and has developed corporate programs for supporting grief in the workplace and stewarding clients through grief. Welcome, Shari.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, Andy McNiel. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Heidi. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Andy McNiel is the Senior Advisor of Youth Programs at the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, better known as TAPS. He is a consultant and advisor for the Compassionate Friends and co-founder of the Satori Group, a national consulting firm focused on grief and loss. Andy is also a trainer for the American Foundation for Suicide and the co-author of Understanding and Supporting Bereaved Children, a practical guide for professionals. So I guess I want to start out by asking you all, for anyone who wants to answer this, you came to me and said, hey, let's do a show on profound losses in childhood and adulthood. And I'm wondering why you felt that was important.
Well, for me, the reason why it's an important topic is because loss is a part of all of our lives. From the moment we're born, we have loss. We experience loss in a lot of ways. And some of those losses are a normal part of just development in life, no matter what age you are, whether you're an infant or a toddler or a child or a teenager or a young adult or an older adult. Mm-hmm. Loss is going to be part of life. However, there are also these major life-altering losses that I use the term profound losses, that are different than regular developmental losses we might experience in life. They're those losses that are hugely disruptive, where we are moving from one way of being in the world to another way of being in the world, where we now understand something about the world we didn't know before. So an example in childhood would be the death of a parent, mm-hmm. or a sibling, or someone who's significant in your life, a coach, or a teacher, or someone who is that person in your life, your adult, or a friend, or a sibling, someone who is your peer, right? Mm-hmm. Those are profound losses that when we go through them, they change us. There's this transformation that's happening in our lives. And it's true for adulthood as well. The death of a spouse, the death of a child, a hugely profound loss, maybe one of the most profound losses that you can have. The death of an adult sibling, or even the death of your own parents, mm-hmm. as an adult, and that transition that you go through in your life. So we thought it was an important topic to share because it's something that we all, if we live long enough, we are going to experience profound losses. And the question becomes, what do we know about that? How does it impact our lives? How can we still have wellness on the other side of a loss? Mm-hmm. What does that look like for us? So we thought it was an important topic to talk about today.
I like this, okay. I'm wondering if we can start by talking about your own profound losses.
Sure. In December of 2000, our daughter, Paula, passed away at age 10 from the effects of a hyper-rare genetic disorder. And she was part of a twin set. She had a twin brother. And, one of the things that I hear in your expression, Andy, is this, what do you do when you're managing your own profound loss and you're also dealing with the profound loss that's trying to be managed by your child, right? Michael was 10 years old, and all of a sudden his partner in life kind of was gone. And I still remember, Paula died at a hospital. It was an unexpected death, happened very suddenly, and as a twin, he came and I had to tell him that his twin sister had passed away, and it was just an amazing, difficult time for everybody in our family. My wife, Pam, myself, our extended family, and of course, now Michael had to deal with this profound loss of a sister, and so there's almost like a multiplier effect here, where you are trying to manage your own loss, you're dealing with and also trying to help him, transcend or get through his loss. So that's one of the reasons I'm interested in this topic.
I like it. And a twin loss is really significant. I mean, he knew his sister 9 months before everybody else.
Yes.
It's such a tight bond.
Yeah, and he suffered for a couple of reasons. Paula was, she had this disorder. It was it was profound in her life in the way she affected her life. And she was much smaller, for example, than he was. And so he felt like he was her protector at school because they were in the same school class. And, all of a sudden, he was feeling guilty because the protection that he thought he was bringing on was gone, right?
Yeah.
And just layers upon layers of things to deal with.
Absolutely. Shari, what are your thoughts about this topic?
Well, so you asked about our profound losses. My first one came very young in life. I was just 9, and we were on a family vacation, and my sister was killed on that vacation. And, to me, profound loss is about the unnatural, and that's a big part of what that is, as Andy was talking about. It's not that we don't grieve other losses. We will grieve all our losses, but we will all lose a parent at some time. That's expected, and we will all lose grandparents, and so we work through the grief process, but these other profound losses have so much more that are part of that. So for me, it made me very different than everybody else around me. There weren't a lot of 9-year-olds who, had gone through what my family was experiencing. And so it's such an important topic because getting better as a society, supporting that and doing the right things really matter, how we support that. And it just, I didn't realize it till I was an adult, but I lived my whole life through a different lens than other people did, because for me, what was just a given and a normal aspect of my life was very different than people I knew. And then, I still was tremendously shocked to become a bereaved parent. Ever in my wildest dreams would I have imagined I lost a child, which sounds strange to say if I already knew loss, but it's almost like there's a little piece inside of us that thinks we have an insurance policy. Like, I did that already, so there's no way life is taking me there. That's not my thing. So to be faced with that it was there aren't words to describe how difficult that is. And I think for me, both of those I describe as like an earthquake that happened. And in a moment's notice, with no control and nothing, no warning, this line came, and the old world I had was gone, never to return again, and I had a new world, and I could look across and see that old world, but I could never have that again. And no matter how much I wanted or tried, and was left with, how do I navigate this new world, whether I was ready or not, or wanted to or not.
And that's in a lot of ways why we use the word profound, because it has a profound impact on your life, like the direction of your life, who you are as a person, who you are in the world, what you believe about the world, all of those personal meaning, all of those things are hope.
Yeah.
All of these profound things that we lean into in life are impacted by those things. For me, when I think about probably the first profound loss I had in my life, I remember my parents were missionaries in South America. We lived in actually Costa Rica for a while, and then they were stationed in Barranquilla, Colombia. And so my brother and I, when we were little, we were at home with our maids and the ladies who kept us, and they only spoke Spanish. So we only spoke Spanish to them. And we grew up kind of that way when we were young. And so when my sister was born, she was born with a hole in her heart, a hole in the roof of her mouth, and a hole in the center of her brain. And it impacted her. And our lives immediately upon her birth, our lives changed profoundly. We moved back to the States. My dad had to find a church to be a pastor. The trajectory of our lives completely changed. And then we spent years, really most of my childhood, was wrapped around my sister's care and who she was, and the open heart surgery and cleft palate surgery and ultimately psychiatric care as she became a teenager. So it's thinking about those things that alter our lives and the trajectory of our lives. And it doesn't mean that it necessarily alters it just for the negative. So there's this term post-traumatic growth, right? And this idea that there are also things, virtues in our lives that develop as a result of living through such profound change. And there's a lot that would go into that. Even just leaning into your personal agency, your own ability to make choices, to choose to not take the anger you have inside and project it onto other people, to take a breath and make a decision that I can't just go through the world an angry person, or I can't go through the world, a bitter person, or whatever that might look like. So there's a lot of options and choices that we make that take us to a place maybe we never thought our lives would be, or who we would be.
And sometimes early on, it's hard to wrap your arms around that. The whole post-traumatic growth and the idea that there's hope again. But eventually there is, or we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Like, we are showing people it's possible. But when we decided to call our foundation the Open to Hope Foundation, the reason we didn't call it the Hope Foundation is because we didn't want to minimize people's losses, but we wanted them to be open to the idea, like you're saying, Andy, that someday they could have hope again.
Yeah.
That someday they could have post-traumatic growth, right?
Yes.
That it was possible.
Right.
And early on, I know some of you out there listening may not think it's possible, and that's okay, because I know all of us have been in that space.
And even the term post-traumatic growth can be hurtful for any listeners who may be newer in grief, because the thought of us growing by that loss is like, I don't need to grow, I can give that back, right? But at the same time, as time goes on, we don't get that person back. We don't have that choice. So what we do from there matters. And
Exactly.
I think that leading the Compassionate Friends is interesting because, people will often say, isn't that a really sad, depressing job? And, my answer is, well, really sad things bring people to us. So certainly, there's a level of compassion and empathy for a plethora of really painful stories. But I actually find that it's a group of people that are far deeper than most people in the world are, that are far more interesting and intricate, that live their lives in better ways, and live in community and live in goodness in a lot of great ways, because it's in honor of themselves and the person they lost, because we are different and we walk a longer journey, but we become more, many of us over time, if we give that opportunity to recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's people who are awake and aware at a level that many people who haven't maybe experienced a profound loss are not.
Right.
They just aren't, because you can't know it
That's right.
unless you've lived it.
Absolutely. And you all have something in common, as do I. We had losses and significant adversity out of like early on. I mean, these were young people. Your sister being born with all these health issues, and your children dying, and your sister dying, and my brother dying. It was out of sequence.
Yeah.
It was something we didn't expect to have happen.
No.
Like we all were all blindsided by all of this.
It's not supposed to happen.
So exactly, we didn't figure this would be our lives. So I'm wondering, what did all of you need after your profound losses? What did you need? What helped you?
Well, as I think one of the things that really helped me was, besides having a strong family structure, which was great, and but again, my wife was going through the profound loss too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, and we were all grieving in different ways. Certainly, I espouse the use of professional help in some fashion. Can you talk to a counselor? Can you talk to people trained in grief, and just start to get a path forward, because we're all stumbling around right after this all happens. We hope we'll get to a better place at some point, but we just can't see it there, right? And we're it's going to take time. It may take a year, it may take 2 years before you actually can feel as if you're starting to grow again.
Yeah.
And so if someone can help you see that and visualize that and work your way through that, I think that's really important.
Yes. It's interesting for me because when I was a child, there wasn't really, much support. The Compassionate Friends was just starting in the U.S., wasn't in my area, so my parents really had none. And I was in the Midwest at the time. It was very much pull yourself up by your bootstraps and move on, and that's not healthy. That's not helpful. Support is critical. So I would echo the one part John said about professional help. Grief counselors can really be useful and helpful if you find one. And that's not necessarily enough. That's a piece of it. I found for me using a grief counselor was helpful for going through this horrible trauma again, a second segment of my life, and to help me be a stronger mom for my daughters and continue in that format. But the other thing I needed, and thank goodness I found it, or it found me, was the Compassionate Friends, and that was peer support. Afterwards, I read voraciously because I felt like I was on another planet. And I just needed to find other people who had experienced it and know their stories of pain so that I wasn't alone, but know their stories of what did they do with that and how on earth am I going to get through it. And it was a lifesaver, which many of us say, because it just to see those further along, living again, wanting to live again, caring about that, gave little baby steps over a long period of time to be able to manage to find that life again.
Bibliotherapy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also alluding to the idea of encountering peers, people who have walked that road and can model for you what that looks like, because you don't have a language for it. Yeah. You really don't have a context for it. There's the old phrase that says, if you don't know what to do, you do what you know. Well, when what you know is ineffective and inefficient, you have to open yourself up to know something new. So there's this new knowledge that you can gain by going to a counselor, a therapist, but also by being with people who have been there and they've walked it, and you see, they had to make some really tough choices along the way. They couldn't do anything about this, but they could do something about this other thing. And in a lot of ways, for me, just in my own personal life, but also just sitting with people and providing counseling and support, what I've seen, that grief in and of itself is really a necessary component of that transformation that's happening in a person's life. Going through it and experiencing it somehow is a part of that. And I almost think of it as a developmental stage that has nothing to do with age. Doesn't mean it's a normal developmental stage, right? Because it's something that has happened that's profound, it's out of the norm, that's not expected in our world, right? But you're going through this developmental stage, and in the developmental stage, each stage there's a crisis, right, and a struggle. And the one that I've seen most often in grief, the struggle is our ideals versus reality. This is what I wanted. This is what I got.
Yeah.
And the two are in conflict, and how we are able to manage that crisis and find ways to lean in with our personal agency and all of those things that are just hard to even, even pull out and be part of things, impacts where we land and what that looks like. That idea that we're not bouncing back to something,
Right.
Right.
we're
bouncing
moving
forward.
towards something. Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you have for people that are watching this that have had a profound loss and that feel like it's so painful that they don't know how they're going to survive right now?
Well, the title of the show says a lot, open to hope. And that's really difficult for people who are just beginning and coping with a profound loss. But when people go to their first Compassionate Friends sharing session, I think one of the things that's amazing to them and gives some people hope and some people get alarmed by it is the fact that experienced grievers are laughing, and have this
Yeah.
Yeah.
camaraderie that is very difficult to describe. And I encourage people to just, give yourself several meetings if you're going to a group like that, or, don't make your mind up in the first meeting. Try to go to 3 or 4 meetings, and then you can start to understand, I think, that this is could be a positive thing for you to do.
And I'd really say find peers. It just makes all the difference, whether it's a formal chapter meeting or something else. People have different levels of support. Some people have very supportive families and very supportive churches, and that's wonderful. But there aren't necessarily people who are modeling what your future life is going to look like, and that matters. You mentioned the laughing. I remember my first couple meetings. I saw a few of the people further along laughing, and I was so angry. I just thought, there's nothing to laugh about. How can anybody be laughing here? And then it took a long time, but maybe 6 months later, I had my first laugh. And I felt really guilty, and I felt really bad about it. And then I remembered those people, and I remembered that I admired them. Their son was shot and murdered, and I remember them laughing and me going, okay, I've gone somewhere new. That's scary and kind of uncomfortable, but really matters. And if I had not seen them do that, I'm not sure what I would have thought about that. It would have felt more uncomfortable. And all those things are like that. Going back to work, spousal relationships, relationships with our families change. And when you have peers who are going through it, you can talk to people about what did they do about those and what can I expect and what, how might I manage something by learning from somebody else who knows what this is like.
It normalizes a lot of what we go through, too.
It sure does.
There were things as a sibling that I was dealing with which nobody but other bereaved siblings could understand.
Right,
I mean, I felt the wrong child had died and that it should have been me. Well, when I went to anyone but other bereaved siblings, people would shut that down.
Right.
They were there going, yeah, we felt the same way. Let's talk about this.
Yes.
So it's great to have peers and
It
peer
is.
support.
Very much.
And I like the idea of going to more than one, going to 3
Yes.
Compassionate Friends groups or any 3 groups of any bereavement groups 3 times before you make a decision.
Yeah. Well, the word patience comes to mind. Right. Be patient. It's not going to all happen at once.
Yep.
And I know it sounds easy to say be patient, but when I say this, I really mean give yourself grace. We want everyone in our lives to give us grace, and I know it's hard. People are giving us all sorts of advice, some of it offensive, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't mean to be, but it's offensive at the time. So give yourself that grace to say, I don't have to be anywhere than where I am right now. I don't have to laugh right now. And I'm going to give myself that grace to not laugh because I'm not ready to do that. I can't see how I can laugh and I can miss my person at the same time. Like those two they're not compatible. And it's okay to be where you are in that moment. And then I also mean with patient is give yourself credit though for what you are doing. Because as hard as it is, people do, and it might be minor things that other people wouldn't notice. But I've talked to people who it was a huge task just to get out of bed.
Oh, yeah.
And it may have been the next day, it may have been a week from that day, it may have been months from that day, but you did it, and give yourself credit that you got out of bed, and you did that. Give yourself credit that you're honoring your person and that you care, that it has impacted your life. So I say sometimes just up front, just be patient with yourself. Look at the little small things. You don't have to be way out there. And I agree, peer support. You need to have good role models and people who can build you up and hold you up when you can't seem to do that yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And looking at people further down the road as lifelines,
Yes.
which I definitely needed when Scott died.
Yeah.
Where can our viewers find all of you? John, where do they find you?
Well, I'm at jpsantoro@aol.com, and I'm happy to receive any comments or emails, and we'll respond as best I can.
Great, thank you.
And certainly the Compassionate Friends is a great organization for support. So that's Shari at compassionatefriends.org. Personally, my email's Shari, SHARIOLO5 at gmail.com. And same, open to supporting.
And you can find me at andy.mcniel, and it's MCNIEL. The other spelling, Andy McNiel, he gets my emails. He doesn't forward them to me. So andy.mcniel, MCNIEL, at thesatorigroup.org. And then probably the other easier email is just andy@compassionatefriends.org. You can find me there.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. You are all such great examples of how we've found hope again after profound losses. And I just want to close the show by saying, if you've lost hope, please lean on all of ours until you find your own, and God bless. Thank you.
I've learned that it helped me to help others, to know I'm not the only one, put one foot in front of the other, find a life.
Adding hope to the darkness, you start on the trip to recovery.
Reach deep down inside and say, I am going to live on.
We laugh, we cry, and remember.
Hope without action doesn't work. Hope with action can change the world.
We always say, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours.